Home sales in the Greater Toronto Area were higher last month, though prices continue to fall as economic uncertainty and high levels of inventory weigh on the housing market. Let's get some perspective from John Pasalis. He's president of Realosophy Realty. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, let's talk about what's happening in the Toronto area. We're seeing definitely more homes for sale than we apparently have buyers. But why do you think we're seeing this much inventory sit on the market?
Well, the inventory has been building up largely because sales have been at pretty much a 20-year low for quite some time. So even if you have normal levels of new listings, if the number of people buying is at record lows, effectively inventory just starts to build up. And that's really where we are at today. We have a lot of homes for sale, and it's significantly higher than the increase in demand we've seen over the past couple of months.
So we've seen prices come down fairly dramatically in terms of when you think of a home price, but not enough to spur those extra buyers, I guess, off the sidelines. What else do you think is holding them back? Yeah,
I mean, I think the real holdback is there's just tons of economic uncertainty yet. I mean, people are still uncertain about jobs, about the economy. And the reality is, even with the decline we've seen in prices, they are still quite high, given the fact that interest rates are also substantially higher than they were a couple of years ago. So affordability is certainly weighing on the market, but certainly I think the confidence in the lack of certainty about future economic conditions and trade with the U.S. is certainly weighing on sentiment.
Now, I know you've looked at the lower prices in Toronto or the low rises buildings as well. What would be considered a low-rise building?
So low-rise are basically semi-detached, detached townhomes. So those are typically the ground-oriented homes we see. And those have seen a significant decline in prices. I mean, 7% year-over-year decline over last year, and close to 25% from the peak in 2022.
Wow, okay. And the condo glut carries on. Has there been any easing in that market?
No, I mean, again, I think that market's also quite sluggish. Sales are still very soft, down a little bit over last year. Inventory still high, and prices are also down year over year, around 4% for condominiums.
So what has been hitting that? I know obviously there has been less immigration, international students aren't coming here, so people who wanted to buy and rent aren't having success. But is anything else feeding into that? Are they not big enough condos so the families don't want to move into them?
Yeah, certainly. One of the biggest issues right now in the condo market is the small condo space. There's just no buyers. I mean, those are typically purchased by investors who would rent them out, and there just are no investors. So anyone looking at a 500 square foot unit, there's just a ton of them on the market because there aren't a lot of buyers. When we look at bigger units, those are actually moving a little bit better. They're selling for decent prices because we don't have as many large family-sized condominiums.
Okay, so the people who have kids, for example, are looking for a two-bedroom, if not something bigger.
Exactly, and those units are doing relatively well compared to the small ones.
Do you think buyers are waiting for another rate cut, and we don't know if there is one for sure coming?
I think it's not so much the rate cut. I think some buyers are waiting for lower prices, quite frankly. Some are certainly jumping in now. We've seen a slight uptick in sales, especially for low-rise the past couple months. Again, modest increase. I think that is people just trying to take advantage of softer prices. But I think some buyers are still waiting on the sideline, anxious that prices will be lower in the future.
Okay, so let's talk about the rental side of it, because you mentioned so many condos have been sitting.
Yeah.
Those landlords or owners who wanted to rent aren't necessarily getting renters. So that's got to be good for the renters, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Well, the rental market was soft. We've seen rents come off about 11% from the peak a couple of years ago. But for most of this year, average rents, and it's particularly for condominiums, because that's what we track, there's a big segment of the market, have been relatively flat. So we're not really seeing a lot of downward pressure, at least not in the Toronto area. We've seen kind of rent prices stabilize.
Okay, so what is the average rent in Toronto for condo then?
So average rent's about $2,650 per month. The peak was about $3,000 per month a couple of years ago. So we're down a fair bit, and it's been pretty stable since the start of the year.
And what are you getting for that $2,650?
Well, you're getting, I mean, it's an average. So a one bedroom might be, say, in the low 2,000s. A two bedroom might be closer to 3,000. So you're getting a spacious, say, 1+den, for example.
And there doesn't really seem to be a fix for that condo glut in the near future. And I imagine a lot of new construction for condos has just stalled.
Mm-hmm. So new housing construction is stalled, and we might see a little bit more pressure on rents as more condos are completed over the next couple of years. And that might lead to slightly softer rental market. But yeah, over the long term, we're not going to see a ton of condominiums be built. We're going to start to see, and we're starting to see, of course, more purpose-built rental construction.
Got it. All right, John, I better leave it there. Appreciate you coming in on this.
Thanks for having me.